And we would have to be one-time purchases, like we can't use it for staffing, but we,
Well, I understand, but have we reached out? 'Cause I
well,
think it would be-
typically what we do
I
when
think
we,
it'd be beneficial if we reached out to the principals to see if there's things that they could use for our children or our students that could help, whatever resources they may need to help with that, using that excess money.
typically when we evaluate fund balance, we look at their budget request, which comes from every department and every principal.
Was what we got back in January,
I believe, yes.
when we did the budget.
Yes.
So should we try to reach back out to them and get an update to see if things that might have changed since January to now?
Sure.
Just to see that,
Mm-hmm.
because I know Malcolm, some of us said, about getting back to children, getting things that we need for the students. So if we can do that, it would be, I think it would be advantageous.
Okay.
So, I say this very broadly, because I haven't thought it all the way through. In addition, I'm wondering if there are any things that are safety and security related that could possibly be considered. I could,
We are going to include that in the budget presentation. And the only other thing I had is I have Lori Beckwith. She is the consultant for child nutrition services. I have her contract. It's the same exact amount as it was last year for $28,800. And wanted your blessing to approve it or not.
I wish we could have the opportunity to see that, just for everybody, for the new folks, just what exactly does Ms. Beckwith do for us?
I can send that to you. She is very clear. She has a list of, a page of deliverables. So she is very clear in her contract exactly what her function is. So I'll be happy to send that,
Okay.
as well as with the fund balance.
That'd be great, thank you.
And I can also make sure that the evergreen, I can get my hands on the evergreen thing to make sure that gets done.
Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Emily, so that information that we get from the principals and all, will you be able to give that to us, when we reach out? I'm sorry.
That's okay. They say to go back to the microphone. Yes, we are going to be, this is not something that we're gonna be doing right away because, and in order to keep it current, maybe we should wait a little while. We won't know the final fund balance until the fall of what is ending with this year. And after the completion of the annual school report and the beginning of the audit. So we also have as a priority spending out all of our ESSER free money. So it might be better to push that until after that point, and then they're in the start of their new school year and they can see what they need. But that would be, and fund balance is always a decision that's presented and voted on by this board. These that I said tonight were just updates as far as, Accomack primary, we all know we're doing that. And all of the bleacher projects and the carry forward projects, they were all approved by this board. The only thing that wasn't specifically was the retention and sign-on bonus that I proposed tonight, as well as the both gyms and not one.
And the paving, that's separate, that was separate.
Yes.
So going back to my question then, so do you think we'll have something maybe by August that we can kind of look at prior to the starting of school?
We won't know our fund balance in August. We won't know our fund balance until after completion of the annual school report, which is September 30th, which is the same date as the closeout of ESSER. And see, at the same time, we would be possibly be coming back, that's something we planned for ESSER didn't happen, and we would come back to this board and say, hey, can we make an amendment and put this in ESSER? Because that's the priority, is to get that spent out by September 30th.
So Mr. Taylor's question, you would know the answer to that by, say, November?
October, November, yes. And we can send stuff out to the schools, say in September or October when they get back to school and start, so that they can start thinking of what they might need.
Yeah,
With
we'll have
guidelines that it has to be one time.
Correct.
Just
So are we saying maybe like a wish list they could start working on now if they wanted to? They have the anticipation that there may be money.
They may see these things or know things possibly now that.
Instead of last minute looking around, they could really take a good look maybe over the summer over things and create a wish list for when the next thing.
Stop doing a lot of last minute stuff.
And see, we have staff changes too, so we have principals that may not know what their new building needs. That, you know.
They
Somebody
should
just
know a
said
lot
they
of the
can
vice
start.
principal or the staff that's there.
You know, all the schools at the budget time, they all submitted what they needed, and then Dr. Hall wanted to increase the salaries for the teachers, so we spent the bulk of the budget on the salaries, and not too many things at the building level. So all those items are still there waiting for us.
And that's usually where we start.
I'm kind of like with you, Jesse, just start the pile on that list and then we won't be in like last minute, so. Thank you.
Office of School Quality Division Plan.
Oh, Ms.
Yes.
If I may, on the prior topic,
Yes.
so, Ms. Lee, of course, spoke correctly, the Board of Supervisors will receive the audit report on this Thursday, June 19th. Meeting starts at 5 p.m. I did communicate that whereas I'm on the audit committee, I have an appointment in Maryland, so I may not be able to be there, so hopefully, some board members can be present, and at least, get them information first.
Thank you. Hello, ladies.
Good evening again. I know you said Office of School Quality. I think Greta pulled up federal grants. Is it okay if we do that first?
Oh, sure.
I think that was first one.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you, Greta. So it's that time of year where Ms. Ibera, Ms. Taylor, and myself come before this committee, and we share with you an overview of our titles, Title I, Title IV, Title V, and Title III. And this is just a snippet of what these grants are. They're due July 1st, so we're in the final stages of getting them completed, and we'll have the complete grant to you as well. So to start with Title I, this is for schools that have high numbers, high percentages of children from low-income families. And you'll see here the anticipated funding versus what the funding was this year, because what they have us do with these grants is not actually start and write it with the anticipated funding. We do it with the level funding that we had from the previous year. So our projection is $1,867,499, but what you'll see in my Title I grant is I actually budgeted for the $2,019,014.51. And then they'll come back to us in September, October, and give us the updated number, and I have to go in and amend it. So here are some things that we typically use Title I funds for. One thing you won't see up here that Ms. Taylor and I are working on right now is a literacy and middle school supervisor coordinator. We're still working out some of the details, but as you guys have heard from me several times, there's a lot coming down the pipe with the Virginia Literacy Act, and literacy is going to be a huge focus this coming year. So that's another position that we are working on right now. As you know, Title I parent-family engagement is a huge component of that, and also social emotional learning, professional development, and supplemental materials that support our students in these schools. Questions about Title I? Okay. So Title IV is for student support and academic enrichment. There's 3 categories in this particular grant: well-rounded students, safe and healthy students, and technology. And again, this is the funding that we had this year. The anticipated funding is $171,427.58. And some of the things that are in this particular grant, this year we did Girls on the Run, which was really successful. We did it this spring, so we're going to continue to do that in the fall and spring next year. Greenhouses, STEM labs, robotics, and you can see the other items that this grant focuses on. And this is for all schools, where Title I is specific schools, all schools have access to this funding as well. And next up is Ms. Taylor for Title V.
So with the Title V, that is for rural areas and low income. Very few school divisions in the state actually get this grant, and right now it's projected, which what we have this year was $153,000. This grant is very flexible though, as long as the main goal of the grant is towards school improvement. And we center things around working with the school improvement of our schools and looking at the comprehensive needs assessments for our schools. So the first bullet, I have put on there for stipends for after-school tutoring and Success Academy. We are actually not need to use this grant funds for that for next year because we have at-risk funds that will be able to fund that. So instead, we are looking at using some of the funds towards, as Ms. Farrell said, with Title I to do something with the Literacy Act and having a position with that. With the Literacy Act, we even had to put into our teacher contracts a required certification they have to have for certain positions in certain grade levels by the end of this school year. It's a lot of monitoring, a lot's gonna have to be done with this Literacy Act, that I think it's been a shock for all school divisions this year. We do have approximately about $14,000 that's gonna go towards new teacher academy and CERN for our administrators for professional development. An estimated $50,000 used for travel and registration for local, state, and national conferences. The past couple of years, we haven't done a lot of travel with that because a lot of things have been virtual after COVID, but now things are opening back up. A lot of our teachers have actually been researching out for PD, so we've had more and more teachers actually take an opportunity to go out and do different institutes and professional development. Around $40,000 is going to be used for reimbursement for endorsement testing. So for the teachers that need practice tests in order to get their licensure, we can reimburse for that, as well as tuition assistance. That's been one of the things that we've seen with some of our teachers is just having the funding to be able to take some of these classes to get their actual license. So if we could help a little with that, paying a couple classes, I feel like every little bit kind of helps with that, but also talking with them about them staying on with us. And then lastly, about $18,000 we have allotted for science and STEM labs. The curriculum labs have been great and they're very successful, but we need to replenish them. And again, this is a very flexible grant, so amendments can be made. So right now, I'm actually in the process of amending this year's grant to actually put some more towards categories like science and some of our STEM labs as well. Any questions?
I have a question. Not that I want the teachers to go hungry, but the working lunches, I mean, so this Title V money is for rural and low-income school programs, and it's only it's less than $154,000, right? That's not nothing, but if that's all we have, should we, I don't know, are we buying lunches for the teachers?
For New Teacher Academy, there is the one luncheon, which is where the new teachers, administrators, central office, they all come in for that, and I believe it's another lunch is paid for, and it's been for the last several years a $5,000 budget for that.
And the professional development, not that we shouldn't provide lunch, I'm just saying, should we provide it with this money? And I guess I'm thinking.
We can certainly look at other funds to pay for the luncheon versus, and then,
Yeah,
I mean,
just
like I say, it's
it would
only
be nice
been
if this money
$5,000.
went right to the children.
Mhm.
And the professional development books also. Again, I'm not against the professional development books, I'm just wondering if that's the best use of this money. I just would like to see it all go to the children.
Well, in the past, they did the Wong and Wong books with classroom management, and they are no longer, that actually discontinued. So Ms. Evans, who was the lead, she found another book that's been very effective with classroom management, as well as it comes with workshops and resource materials to help our new teachers, but she's also utilized it with some of our seasoned teachers that might need a little assistance with classroom management.
This grant does not only go to the kids, if you look at this grant, it has to be a combination of staff and students. This grant, yes.
Anybody have a question, comment?
And I will be submitted next week. So if you think of something, feel free to email me, and I can see if I can fit that in.
I am just interested, I think it's the third slide with the list. I was just wondering if there's amounts sort of send us ballpark amounts for those
For
things?
Title I?
Yes.
I actually have,
appreciate
I have it written down, and you'll see it in the final grant, but I can give you a quick ballpark, I have it written here on my notes. So it's broken down by object code, so object code 1,000 is your salaries and stipends. So what we do is, excuse me, I sit down with Carlton from the finance department, and we look at the last 2 years, what the projections were, how much we spent, and then we base it on that. So in 1,000, it's gonna be a little over $1 million. 1,178,000, 2,000, which is your benefits and so forth. That's around 398,000, so roughly 400,000. Object code 3,000, that includes reimbursements for food. It might be at parent-family engagement events, and that also includes professional development. There's 152,000. Object code 4,000, we set aside $1,500 every year for our Miss Becky Haney. She works with foster care, homeless children. So we set aside some additional funds for her if she needs those. Object code 5,000, again, is some PD and various things. So that's 29,500. And then in object code 6,000, that's any of your supplemental materials, your classroom libraries, your social emotional de-escalation areas. I've got roughly $259,000 in there as well. And you'll see it all when I submit my final application.
Ms. Trump,
Yes.
quick follow-up, I may have missed it, parent-family engagement events, did you mention which class or which category? I may have missed it, I'm sorry.
And it could actually go in several of the object code, it depends on what it is. So if we buy instructional materials to give to the parents, because the main thing with the parent-family engagement with Title I is the parents are leaving that event taking information about their children and learning and instruction. So if it were hands-on materials that we're giving parents, maybe a backpack of supplies, that would be 6,000. If it's the food, that would fall under object code 3,000. And you'll see in the budget, in my budget, it's all, there's line items for all of it.
So if you could send that, I guess, to us, the total. if you don't
Yeah,
mind,
yeah.
Whenever it gets changed.
This week, usually Miss Taylor and I are done around this week, they're due July 1st, so we try to give ourselves a week of wiggle room there, if we have to go back. Any other questions? Now, I think Ms. Ibarra is going to share Title III.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trace Ibarra, and I'm the coordinator for EL, Migrant, and TAG programs. And I'm here to talk about Title III, Part A, and Title I, Part C. First, I have Title III, Part C, which is the language instruction for English learners and immigrant students. Our anticipated funding for this grant is $87,328. Okay, and just a little lesson on vocabulary. For ELs, English language learners, they can be students from ages 3 through 21 enroll in a K-12 school. Students not born in the U.S. or whose native language is a language other than English, or students who have difficulty speaking, reading, writing, or understanding the English language. The other category that we have is the immigrant students. Immigrant students may or may not be ELs. Their ages 3 through 21, not born in any state in the U.S., and have not attended one or more schools for more than 3 years. It also includes students who are U.S. military personnel, assistant faculty, or students, high school exchange students, like J1 or an F1 visa. Okay, this is just a little background information on how many students we have on our population of ELs for Accomack County. Right now we have 809 students who receive ESL services. And then we have 313 students who are monitored students. Usually those are the ones that have tested out of the program, but we still monitor them for 4 years. So that's a total of 1,122 students, which is about 23% of our Accomack County student population. Okay. This one is just gives you a little overview or of the number of students receiving services by school. Of course, you see Wetumpka way up there. Those are her numbers receiving services. And these are our language proficiency levels that we currently have. Our levels go from 1 through 4. The zeros are kindergarten students are just entering the program, and so they have the lowest proficiency level. This is just an overview on how we're going to be spending some of those the Title III funds. 2% of the grant goes to the EL Migrant Administrative Assistant, which is what's allowed according to the grant. We provide stipends for after-school, summer school remediation, tutoring services to provide tier 3 support for our immigrant and youth students, stipends for professional development activities outside of the school day. It also pays for our elevation database with strategies to support our general education teachers with ELS in their classes. And we also have other language support programs, which pays for some of the Lexia English licenses to support language, and Rats for Kids and other databases that we have. It also pays for some of the conferences, including registration, travel for participants, and also for meetings related to ELS and immigration and youth services. We also buy newcomer materials and supplemental materials as well. Parent engagement activities and events, pay for supplies or food for the events. This is an event that we had on June 8th for our 8th graders, getting them ready for high school, and we just share some of the expectations that they will have. Some of our newcomers were very appreciative, especially if they got to meet their high school EL teachers. Now we move on to Title I, Part C. Do you have any questions on Title III? Okay. All right, Title III is the education of migratory students. Our anticipated funding for this is $793. And this year, the state is asking us to add the consortium grant to the original application, which is $14,363. And last performance period, we had 94 migrant students, and currently we have 55 active migrant students. And we still doing some recruiting for the summer program that we'll have this summer, which will start July 1st until July 31st. And who qualifies as a migrant student is a child who's not older than 21 years of age. The child made a qualifying move as a worker or with a migratory culture worker, which will be the parent, and a migratory fisher in the last 36 months. After 36 months, they will expire as a migrant worker if they stayed here for 36 months. Okay. And this is how we spend some of those fundings as well. Again, we use 2% for our EL Migrant Administrative Assistant. For our summer program, our teachers, we usually have about 60 teachers and 12 other, staff members like paraprofessionals, recruiters, translators, and bus drivers. We also pay for migrant literacy net and sign-up trainings for our teachers, and we also provide reimbursement for transportation and snacks for our students. And again, meetings, conferences, we pay out of this if they're related to migrant education, travel for recruiters, if they have to go to a camp, we pay for their mileage out of this grant. And we also get some hygiene kits, backpacks, and school supplies for students. We plan field trips during the summer as well to the Discovery Center, Wallops, or the Virginia Aquarium. We also partner with Berry Islands and the Native Conservancy to provide some experiences for the students. Other supplies that we buy is level readers, take-home books, and instruction materials used to reinforce and re-teach reading and math skills. And we also have a parent engagement event that we provide food and supplies for parents. And that's a dark picture, but this is the picture. The last picture I have for you guys is just pictures from last summer. We had pictures of the classroom, students on field trips, and also the Rural Health provides a health fair for students, so they come in and different organizations, provide experiences for our migrant students. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't know if you all know, but a couple of weeks ago, Miss Amara did a get ready for high school for all the ELL kids at the public library.
Yes, it was at the public
And it was
library.
very well attended.
Yes, we have good participation, it was excellent.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, no
Any
problem.
questions for Miss Amara?
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the Office of School Quality Division Plan.
Hello again.
I got your grant mixed up with Beth's money's. That's what,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So Ms. Taylor and I are going to present our office school quality division plans. As you know, each school is required to do a CNA, a comprehensive needs assessment, and also a school improvement plan based on data. So at the division level, we do the same thing. I'm not sure why. Oh, thank you, Greta. I thought my clicker not working. Okay. So there are 4 domains as part of this plan that we have to do for the division. There's academic, which focuses on high-quality instructional materials. There's a staffing domain, of course, which we've been hearing a lot about this evening, of recruiting and retaining. There's a professional learning domain and a school climate domain that focuses on families, learning opportunities, and instructional materials, and just improving the overall school climate. So domain 1, again, is the academic. Our academic focus is high-quality instructional materials. You'll hear HQIM a lot, again, with literacy and the Virginia Literacy Act. So our goal is to implement and train all required ACPS staff for the Virginia Literacy Act. Ms. Taylor just mentioned that a few minutes ago. All K-5 teachers have required training, as well as our 6 through 8 teachers, and they have a couple options. There's 3 options. They have a Canvas course, letters training, or Gillingham training. And thankfully, many of our staff were proactive, and they've already been trained. And the goal is to have this completed by the end of the upcoming school year. We want to we want to see improvement in our VAL scores. You've heard me talk about PAL scores, which is a literacy screener. That's now going to be referred to as the VALS assessment, which is a more thorough, in-depth assessment. And domain 2, our focus is staffing and teacher recruitment and retention. And our goal is to increase recruitment and retain highly qualified credentialed teachers. And of course, we want to reduce the job vacancies by 15%, and we want to improve our IPALS report. And this is a report that comes out each year that lists the number of qualified credentialed teaching staff that we have. And Ms. Taylor's going to share domain 3 and 4 with you.
So domain 3 was your professional learning, focusing on career development. As you can see, with the objective of 75% of our teachers and administrators with professional development. We did this about 3 years ago, and we said we'd like to do it again. Ms. Ribbon and I have put together a division-wide survey and sent it out in Google Docs for our teachers to actually give their input of what exactly are you looking for professional development. Because I think one thing I've seen in past years, being both in the classroom and at the level, is finding PD that's content specific. If it's not content specific, it's probably not for that teacher. So actually hearing from teachers, what do they need? And then we actually were able to put together some professional developments. 3 years ago, it was a little bit more challenging. Again, a lot was still virtual, but now that things are a lot more face-to-face, there's more things that are available to our teachers. We want to give them the opportunity again to give us their ideas and just analyze the results and put some things together for them. Also plan or implement some PD sessions for our special education, our L teachers, use of technology. Every summer we do the Tech Summit, which a lot of our teachers have really enjoyed doing that, because again, the technology teachers ask the teachers, what is it that you need help with? What is it that we could provide you? We have also changed some of our software programs that we kind of felt like weren't being utilized as much, and some of our teachers actually found some great programs they want to start using. So We will have that again. Another thing we're looking at, we're doing professional development on cultural awareness as well as mental health. Some of our teachers have actually requested some professional development and some things regarding mental health, and our mental health counselors have actually already started doing some sessions. Also hosting some of these sessions during some of our early outs that we have already planned into the calendar, and any PD that would be outside of contract hours, we would obviously pay a stipend for. For domain 4, focus is around attendance. As you all saw when data was presented in September, we didn't have a lot of schools in the green for attendance. And attendance has not only been an issue for students, but also for the staff. So, as you saw at the last board meeting, our attendance looks better for students. We're hoping with this new report that we're going to submit to the State Department, where for secondary 3 hours and getting you back one day, 2 hours and getting you back for elementary one day, we're hoping that'll help adjust it. Well, one thing I've always said is it's easy to hit the goal, we got to maintain the goal. So one of the things that we had looked at, Ms. Ferguson, Ms. Jordan, and myself, was the actual attendance policy last year, and you all approved some changes to that. And we really hit the ground running, and I think that has been a help to getting more schools, we're hoping, in the green, because we started doing attendance meetings quarterly. Not waiting till the end of the semester to get credit recovery hours, but actually doing it quarterly so the kids understand you will fail due to attendance if you don't come to school. So we saw a huge difference just from first semester to second semester when it comes to attendance. And then also looking at our teachers' attendance, I think it was a help, even though it didn't start till second semester for the attendance incentive for teachers, but it was a shock when their name was not onto the reports, even though we still have a couple schools we're waiting for reports from. But I think it was a shock to the teachers that their name did not get put on the report, but it got to come to school. So we're hoping that list will be much longer next year because we want to keep that incentive going. That you have better attendance for the staff because staff comes to school, because we were hopefully likely to come to school. It's just a win-win for both. Also with the attendance for the student side, we still have in the All of Virginia grant for 2 attendance clerks, one on the north end and one on the south end, that will help with the elementary and middle schools, because where that grant's only for grades 3 through 8. So hopefully that'll also take a little bit of load off of our administration and counselors who have been trying to track it and keep up with it. That's a lot to keep up with, and constantly mail out letters every single week to parents for attendance.
So the attendance clerks are gonna come out of a grant that is only for grades 3 through 8, is that what you said?
Yeah, all in Virginia right now is only for grades 3 through 8. We are waiting to hear back from the VDOE, because where the All in Virginia is 3 components, you got the literacy, the learning, and the attendance. Attendance technically is K-12, but that's where we need to look at other funding, whether it's a grant, whether it's at-risk funds, on the grade levels that All in Virginia won't cover, but we're hoping they'll give us some flexibility to extend it so they can also help with the other grades too. Because obviously we have a shortage of counselors. Right now, we have 3 counselors at the 2 high schools. That kind of helps a little bit with attendance, but now, we're down on counselors right now, so that kind of stretches them better than normal. So, we're pulling from everywhere. Any
It's
questions?
a lot, the attendance is a lot.
It really is.
Who has missed so many days, and who needs a letter, and who needs to be referred to Della, and
Yeah. So with the clerk, we'll actually be able to, if they're on the north end, actually monitor Shingatig Elementary, Kegatank, Metonkin, Arcadia Middle, and they can sit at one building and make phone calls every morning for all the kids that are absent. They can sit there and print out letters for all the schools. There's so much they can do, just centralized, because they'll have access to those schools to be able to do it. That is just time consuming all by itself. And honestly, we've said, doing the robocall at night is too late. Parents need to be called in the morning, especially for middle and high school kids. Parents need to know in the morning their kid is not in school, because it is a shell shock sometimes.
Jill, we don't, I thought we did that, we don't have some sort of automated, like.
We have an automated robocall, but
an app
it
or
usually
something?
goes on, the call goes about 5:30 at night. So with the attendance clerk, that clerk can actually, say around 9:30, start calling every parent that they're designated to the schools for, and let them know your child's not here. Or, that'll be a good opportunity for the parents to know, I had to take them to a doctor's appointment, but then they can document it for the attendance committee. because sometimes the parents forget to call, or maybe forget to send a note in, so it's a good way to have two-way communication.
Questions? Thank you. Okay, the road show, the VSBA road show. So the VSBA has a new president, and he's been going around to different school divisions, talking about the services that the VSBA offer. And this was brought up a while ago, and our agendas were very full, and so I've added it now. I don't know, Dr. Johnson, is there interest in having a road show? We could set up a town hall type thing and invite Mr. Cardillo to come.
Madam Chair, I don't think it's timely at this point. When it was originally suggested, the suggestion from me was for the June timeframe or perhaps early fall. More specifically, my understanding is that president, his tenure is ending, and the new president, which would come to place in the November timeframe, I would suggest that we wait and see if that person continues those, and perhaps in the calendar year 22-25 timeframe, we could give early consideration,
Okay.
if that's the case.
I think, I checked the VSBA website, and there's, school divisions booking through August for those. And it said if you're interested to call them and let them know, and they put you on the calendar, but, we can certainly table this.
May I?
Yes.
So I appreciate that. I'm actually not surprised. I think that doing it when school is in session is pretty ideal.
I think that could be done. I think it could be scheduled for September. Probably get more people there. In the summer, people are not paying attention to us. But they are still booking things.
So, are we table it, or are we just?
Sure.
I move that we table this to a later date, that we can readdress this VSBA roadshow.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The insurance consultant update?
After we last met, we had Sands Anderson review the contract for the insurance consultant, and they did recommend some changes, just to name a couple, to rename the entity of the board rather than the public schools, and to add a section called general terms and conditions. So we submitted that to Mark III, and they did approve it, and so the contract has been signed. The bid went live on EDA on June 12th. It's due on July 3rd. That'll give 3 weeks for, so it was will be out for 3 weeks. We'll be able to evaluate it and have schedule final discussions on the week of July 15th or July 22nd. And then Mark III will come here and present to this board at the workshop meeting in August, on August 6th. So they have had communication from various vendors. They've had it from Anthem, Local Choice, and even though Local Choice is a Virginia sponsored, it's an Anthem product. The Local Choice is what Virginia offers, and it's an Anthem product. United Healthcare, Centera, and WellNet. WellNet is a third-party administrator. So he is encouraged by the interest, and he is answering questions, and we are getting additional information if they ask for it. The big push for the information was the census and the large claims and all that we had to get compiled together before we released the RFP.
So will he bring all of those to us, or he'll select what he believes is the top 3 or 4?
He will bring, in the past, what they've always done is they've made a recommendation. They would, I've had them before that they show you the pros and the cons of the top players, who they just determined to be the top players. But this board will make the vote to to follow the recommendation.
He's just gonna bring us one choice.
Well, last time, if you remember, they brought us two choices. It wasn't this company, but they really talked about the vendor that we ended up going with, and they talked about another vendor, which I won't name them right now, but the rates were comparable, but they didn't like the disruption of the network. If you go from, let's just say if you go from United Healthcare to Anthem, you're gonna have a disruption of network where my doctor might be in the plan for United Healthcare, but it's not in the plan for Anthem. So they discussed those considerations the last time we did this in, I think it was August of 2020.
So can we have some of the, maybe like the top three come in and give us their presentation, that the Mark III would choose from?
The presentations were designed, and the way the bid was written is that that will be done with Mark III. It, not to the whole board, that's the way that it was designed.
Okay.
Anybody else? That's everything, thank you. Up next, we have our attorneys here with us. We have Patrick Adriano and Brad King from Sands Anderson.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. If you'd like, I'll give you a little brief bio, why you may or may not want to listen to it. Patrick has been your student services lawyer for 20 years, so he's a known commodity with you all. If you'll allow me a little personal privilege, I'm the son of career public educators. I grew up in Maryland. Was very interested to see a couple things on your agenda, one of which Patrick and I are both marathoners, so we're in favor of your Girls Run program. And I had the absolute honor and privilege of growing up with Calrick, so I loved your Calrick lab grant, or STEM labs. I went to Virginia Tech undergrad. When I got out, I was a television anchor in Charlottesville, and I covered the local school division there because my dad's identical twin had been a prominent educator there who had died young. And so I had access to the educators there, and I started covering the schools. The superintendent of the Charlottesville schools hired me to be his public information officer. I did that for a year. I got hired away by the Virginia School Boards Association to be its lobbyist, and I did that for 2 years. And I figured if I was going to be a lobbyist, I may as well be a lawyer. So I sold my Hokie soul, and I went to UVA, and I got a law degree. And I've spent the last 30 years doing nothing but practicing school law. So I've represented many, many, many Virginia school divisions in 30 years of practicing school law. I now lead the local government group at Sands Anderson, which includes the school law team. And we now have 15 full-time school board lawyers. The work has changed dramatically in the 30 years that I've been doing it, and your superintendent has been leading probably. And for some of you who might have been on the board for a long time, you know that the dynamics have changed a great deal. And so we've seen the need to service you all in boards like yours with a deep bench full of people who have different expertises. I was whispering to Patrick, because I couldn't remember, frankly, who on our team had reviewed the RFP for the insurance service. And we've got some very fine contract lawyers on our team that have helped with that. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of some background with my fly friends here about what we do, and I'm glad to answer any questions. I want to say that Patrick and I both have had conversations with your chair and your vice chair who reached out to us, and we made it abundantly clear to both of them, I think, please correct me if I misstate anything, that Patrick and I understand, as do our colleagues, that our job is to represent the board. We don't represent any of you as individuals, we represent the collective entity. And Patrick and I would not be in business anymore if we tailored our comments or our opinions to any political wings. We don't do that, we are lawyers. We give opinions on what the law is, how we read it, and based on our experience representing divisions around the state. And we have represented Fairfax, and we have represented Wise. We have represented Isle of Wight, we have represented Westmoreland, we have represented Richmond City, we have represented, Roanoke County, you name them, we've probably done some work for them. And so we have learned again that our job is to shoot straight. We don't get a vote, and we don't want to vote. Our job is to just try to give you the outline so that you all can make the best decisions you can. The final comment I would make, though, is that I learned a long time ago that the legal opinion is only one factor that you all have to consider. And so you'll hear, I think often, we will say, yes, this is what the law requires, but we don't live in Accomack. We don't know what your community expects of you all as elected officials. And so that's one variable, along with finances, et cetera, that you'll want to consider. And again, when we spoke with the chair and vice chair, we would like you all to keep your legal bills to a minimum. We'd rather you pay teachers. We'd rather you buy supplies. We'd rather you pay bus drivers, et cetera, right? So we will do everything we can to provide you the most efficient advice we can as well, so that you can make healthy decisions for your community. It's probably way more than you wanted to hear, Madam Chair.
No, that's
Patrick, did you want to say anything? I got to come out.
Thank you.
I will say Patrick's expertise is in student services. He's done your special ed work for those 20 years. I'm one of a handful that does more of the board work more traditionally, and we wanted both of us to come tonight so that you would see a familiar face and get to know a new one.
Yes.
Oh, I got a question. You talked to the chair and vice chair, but we're a board of 9. We have discussed about attorney, but we were never advised that they pursued an attorney. Then all of a sudden, here is on the agenda, we've seen an attorney. Representing my district, I feel that is wrong because I was not notified that here's an attorney coming, and it's not a board decision. It was made by chair and vice chair, which they had more communication. We are 9 just for 1 vote. This is being like, they basically made a decision for us, for me, and I didn't make that decision. All I know, the vote was to have an attorney. But we were not told that they're going out pursuing our attorney. So,
If you're asking me a question, Mr. White, I absolutely agree that it is a board decision. The board should make whatever decision it wants to make, which is in the best interest of your all's community. We were asked to come. Our usual protocol with many of the boards we represent is we communicate with the chair, presumably who has authorization from, in this case, her body. And we're here to talk to you tonight about that. If we leave and you say, we don't want that clown in here ever again, then that's your all's decision. And that's a decision that you all need to make. As I said before, we're not here, believe me, in this day and age, Patrick and I have plenty to do. We have plenty to do. We'd like to be of service to you as best we can. And we even had in our conversations, again, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, we would encourage that you all get to a place where you don't need or want an attorney physically present at all your meetings. Maybe you can get to a place where you look at your agendas ahead of time, or we work with your administration ahead of time and say, look, in the August meeting, we've got a couple things that are legally driven, and we think council should be here to help guide us through that. There are several school boards for whom we appear only in closed meeting to discuss pending legal matters, and we even zoom in for those. So there are a lot of alternatives. But frankly, Mr. White, we did feel it was important that you see us, hear from us, so that you can make a decision about whatever's best for the Accomack.
Yes.
Again, pleased to officially meet you. Want to say that. Thank you for the biographical sharing as well. Madam Chair, what information do we have presently around the costs associated in view of the fact that the board did vote to have an attorney present at each meeting?
It's the same contracted rate that we have with St. Xavier's. We have a contract with St. Xavier's, and it would be the same contracted rate.
May I ask a clarifying question? I might have confused matters. So I'm not asking what the rate is, I'm asking where are the funds to pay for this service? What do we know about the funds that are currently available and future funds to cover?
I think that's probably
So I wanted to go over the changes in the state revenues. As you know, they didn't come out with these until mid to late May, and then we've been analyzing them. So I broke them down into what are discretionary changes, like discretionary funds, basic aid. If you get more basic aid, you really don't have limits on how you can spend it. Versus non-discretionary funds, if you have Virginia Preschool Initiative funds, that must be spent for that specific program. And then I did hybrid. They kind of got rid of prevention, intervention, which is kind of a mixture of the two. They kind of got rid of prevention, intervention, and remediation, but they increased the at-risk. And everything that would have fallen under prevention, intervention, and remediation can qualify for at-risk. So currently with our at-risk funds, the current funds, not the new funds, we spend more for at-risk. At-risk can be a very, very broad category. So we spend more on at-risk than what the existing revenue is that we get. So that's a hybrid. It's not necessarily it all has to go to at-risk because we already overspend in that area. Whereas English language learners, that Teresa has a whole new hierarchy of what our ratios are going to be. So I try to show you that even though there's a lot of new money, some of it you can spend however you want, and some of it you cannot, and some of it can be a little bit of both. So that's why I broke down the changes in state revenues like this. Then on the next slide, I said, so the overall budget, the new revenue that we received $4.1 million of state revenue in the final General Assembly budget that was beyond the proposed governors that we based our budget on in January, the superintendent's budget, and then even the school board's budget. The $1.1 million in local, that was included in our budgets that we went to public hearing at, but that was new money from local. So our average, you've heard me say before, we can add until we go to public hearing, but you can't add any more. And that's a dollar cap. We advertised the budget at 68.8. The final budget's coming in 3.1 over that. So we cannot adopt a budget higher than the advertised amount. You've heard us reference that when we went to public hearing, like add now, and I think the miscommunication came out that if you want to add item A, you have to add it there, whereas no, it was a total cap. You had to stay at that cap of 68. We're above that cap. So that means the next slide, which are all the additional proposed expenditures that were proposed in the original budget, they can stay. This is the budget that the school board adopted. We went to public hearing. They can all stay. We've had some discussion on the guidance secretary at CCS. We hear that we're getting 2 attendance clerks. We also hear it can only go for 3 through 8. We're gonna see how that works down because we have problems at high schools too. We might use more, and Karen's gone, but we might use more money for more attendance. Maybe that can be K-12. So we're not quite sure where that is, but at this point, everything that you all put in the original budget can stay. So then on the last slide, these are the funds that are amount that it is over the cap. And this is what, we're still working on this. On Virginia Preschool Initiative, Katie's found out that they give her 11 more slots. It's a possibility we can use ECSE kids for those 11 slots. A normal VPI program are 20 kids, so that's not enough to support a teacher. So there's still some work being done on that. We have to see if we have 4-year-olds in ECSE programs. English language learners, Teresa got a whole new hierarchy on student-teacher ratios depending on what tier of English language learners there are, and she's still working on that. The early reading initiative is new money we've never gotten before, and we have to investigate on how to use that. And early reading intervention is something that we have had for years. It's also referred to as PALS. We always pull it out and put it in the grant fund anyway, so that was easy to pull that out. And then the balance of what we're over is I took from at-risk, because we have received a substantial, larger amount of at-risk money, and we must make sure that at least this much goes to at-risk programs. So these are things that the instruction department is working on. So what I'd like to propose is we adopt our original budget as we went to public hearing with, at the 68.8. And then we come back at the July meeting to present a plan on how to spend those funds. And then you have to have a public hearing because we're over that amount and the first meeting in August. So these funds do not have to be spent July 1st, but we have to have an operating budget by July 1st, which is why I'd like that passed tonight at the original proposed budget that you all went to public hearing, we presented to the Board of Supervisors.
So would that be an amendment? Is that what we'd be doing in August?
In August, we're gonna be amending our budget, yes, and we're gonna ask for additional appropriation, and, you know, we asked for guidance from the county, and how the county has to do things is different than how we do, but I think we need to be safe, because we passed that cap, and I think we need to make a plan to present it, because we can't go to public hearing without a plan. I mean, we can go to public hearing and say, oh, we have at-risk or English language learner money, but I think we need to have that plan on how we're gonna spend that, get that out there at the next meeting, and then have a public hearing the first meeting in August. So that's what I'd like to propose, is that we pass tonight the original operating budget.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this budget as presented.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second for the budget. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, the cell phone policy. Della was the coordinator of the cell phone policy. We also had one of our parents here. One of our parents was on the cell phone policy committee.
Good evening, everyone. Now, we're gonna have, doing a proposal for, revised cell phone policy. As most of you all have been paying attention to the news, many counties in Virginia and other places across the United States are doing cell phone bans, and different things with the cell phones to try to get back to the purpose of having the students to be focused in class without distractions. So our committee, which was like Ms. Turner said, comprised of board members, parents. We even had our student representatives from the Student Advisory Council, in addition to teachers, our mental health counselors, and administrators. So the one thing that, in lieu of banning them, which Ms. Turner and I kind of went back and forth today discussing like what the word ban means, which is most divisions are not banning, which would mean they would not be permitted at all. So we are going to permit cell phones in the buildings. However, the biggest change to the cell phone policy this school year, if approved, would be the elementary students. We have to keep them off and stored away in book bags for the entire school day, including on the bus to and from school. So that was the same as last year for them. Middle school students with cell phones must keep their cell phones off and stored away in book bags for the entire day. That right there is an amendment because they were afforded the opportunity to use their cell phones in lunch last year. The high school students will be permitted to use have to keep their book bag, their phones stored away also in book bags or in a purse. In addition, they will have to keep all other electronic devices, accessories, and other personal use items in backpacks as well. There will be no more green zones in the school. So last year, between classes, we were trying to allow the high school students to be able to check a quick message in between the 4 minutes or 5 minutes between bell change. That will change this school year. They will only be permitted to use their cell phones in the cafeteria during their scheduled lunch period. The other thing that will be changing is the infractions and the consequences. So to take a more stronger stance on the cell phone, the first infraction will be a 1 day out of school suspension. The second infraction will be a 3 days out of school suspension. The third infraction will be a 5 days out of school out of school suspension. And if there's any more subsequent violations after that, they can go upwards of 5 or plus days, and also possibly the student not being able to bring their cell phone to school. The other part of the policy will still stand with students recording fights, recording teachers and other things while at school events or, on campuses or on the bus, and long-term possible suspension and recommendations for students who send, nude or lewd, photographs and illicit information material through to other students while at the school. So most of the offenses that occur on our server will still be, the same if, discipline consequences, like before. So the main change of everything will be they will have to be off and stored away for the majority of the day, which is a big change from what we did last year. So the committee felt this was something that was, see how this will work for these for the first semester of need be, and make amendments or adjustments possibly as needed as we can, keep up with our discipline data, throughout the first semester. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
No, I'll just say that, we met several times, we explored many options, many options. And this is what we came up with. I didn't know if, Ms. Johnson, would you like to say a few words about come up to the microphone and say your name and please.
Jamie Johnson. The only thing that I would say is, with my background in education, it's important to me that the teachers feel like they can do their jobs and they're taken care of, and that the learning day is not impeded. But as a parent, if we're not gonna allow middle schoolers to be texting during lunch and giving us updates, the schools are gonna have to increase the communication, because it's just not there. We find out everything at the last minute. There's constant last minute changes for everything. And for working parents, that's very difficult. Like, my daughter's in 8 activities at a time. And I want her to be able to have those opportunities, and the only way I can make that happen is by communicating and staying on top of everything, because the amount of last minute cancellations and time changes, there's no activity buses. My husband and I both work, so to keep up with all that, we need to know what's going on. And so, my biggest concern with the change of this is the influx of what's gonna be happening in the office, for all those kids that are in clubs and activities. Because the communication is just not there.
That's good feedback, and I think we talked about that. There is some schools have an app, I can't remember what Kim called it.
Some of the schools
But
are.
there is an app that
Oh, yeah.
schools can.
We have Remind, we have all the apps, all the things. It doesn't.
That's a separate
And that'd be
issue.
something we probably be able to look into and do things with Jack, to try to look at some type of the apps, like the one Virginia Beach uses. Parents are in the know with everything at every moment. A lot of it just comes as a
I mean,
text
is there
message.
any way that that could be the same app that lets parents know that their child did not show up at school?
That'd be a Jack question. We probably could if we can sync them together, something, just to, some type of information
I know
communication
this.
system. Mhm.
Yes.
So, I just wish to express, my concern specifically of receiving this policy yesterday, not providing an opportunity for individual board members to, kind of socialize what's proposed here. Our practice, is that there's a first reading of a policy change, and then there's a second reading. I do acknowledge that when I communicated that you, provided feedback that it is important that the new information get published in the student handbook, correct me if I'm saying it wrong. But I just wanted to articulate that I would really appreciate having the 2 weeks, in fact, we meet on July 2nd, to not even so much vet, but just to start to socialize this, because we only had not even a day, because, my day was full on yesterday.
If I understood, I will say the policy is very much the same. The only thing that, really has changed is the children are not allowed to use their phone when they go from class to class.
say, just like the, lady just spoke, that a lot of communication comes from the cell phone from the student to the parent. I know, I forgot my book, and we drop it off quickly, or I forgot my medicine, and so between classes, they could do that, and now there's really no communication, and I agree, it's gonna be a whole lot of people going to the office, I'm sure. And I don't have the answer, but I see this being, have repercussions anyway.
One thing we tried to say was we wanted to try something to help the teachers. We did a survey, Ms. Johnson made a survey for us that was very kind of eye-opening, like I think the Turner spoke about that before. Seeing some of the feedback from the teachers, so this is something to try. If it doesn't work, we are all open to maybe having to amend it or have to come back. We don't like to keep starting something and don't give it a chance to matriculate to get data from it, so all we can do is try, looking at the feedback about the things that were concerning cell phones. And most of this came out of the fact of some of the discipline cases that had occurred, but we typically are more outside of the school that came inside of the school. So all we can do is try to see what we can do. It's a movement, a lot of states, a lot of counties, a lot of divisions, a lot of other people in the state are moving toward it in the other counties. There was a school division that was featured on the Today Show, and they had a system that worked for their school in that moment. So I called out there to ask them, how do they do that in lieu of pouches, and the yonder pouches we were looking at, doing a lot of research or just calling and talking to people just to see what does it look like at dismissal? How much manpower does it take to have them keep the phones and then move this? Because if this doesn't work, before we go to an all-out ban, it's baby steps to bring the kids back into the learning environment as a whole child versus just there and on their phones and ear pods and all that stuff. And the teachers are gonna have to do their part. If they do their part and enforce it, then, hopefully it can work without us having to have kids go to the office and do things like that.
My question was just, how do you plan to monitor a smartwatch?
Those devices will, I said either that, they're gonna probably all buy the smartwatches now, because the phones are gonna be up. All we can do is try. I mean, we put all electronic devices should be off. Now, I know the watches are gonna be on, so that's gonna be, hopefully that's a small population of students who are coming in with their own personal tablets, iPads, everything. Why? When we had Chromebooks, and then hopefully the teachers aren't using Chromebooks all day, every day anymore. They're gonna have the carts to use them as needed. So hopefully that will cut back on some of that traffic on the servers and stuff, even with the watches. Because everybody else's phones should be off, unless they just all say, you know what, Mom? Like, we have to have a little cup, the little Yetis and Stanleys, everything they need. We have to have a watch now. That's gonna be the next issue. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there.
Yes.
I have a question. When a student commits the first infraction, they get caught with their phone out in class or whatnot by the teacher, and then they get a referral, and they're going to get a day of OSS test. And then at that point, do they complete the remainder of the school day?
Yes. So it depends on which block it is. They will more than likely, most of the time when the students get OSS, the parents are called to come and pick them up. So if it's first block or second block or third block, they're housed somewhere, the parents are called to pick them up. So it depends on when that happens. We're not trying to take phones or anything, but to answer your question, most of the time the parents are called to pick them up. And the one day seems odd, but like when we discussed it, that one day is almost like that warning, even they're gonna have a warning in the morning, put your stuff away. We didn't wanna have a student who has no infractions at all, have a 3-day OSS off the bat for a phone that may actually go off or something like that. But they do get picked up right then, or when the parents are gonna pick them up.
So even with the very first infraction, they will get picked up?
They should get picked up.
Okay, so they're not staying at school, so they
And
can
if they do, they
incur
put
the
an
second and the
ISS.
third infraction all in one day?
And it depends on what happens, if the parents aren't able to get there, I think they put them in ISS for the remainder of the day, and they'll be out that next day, yes.
Should we, instead of waiting for a whole semester, maybe just readdress this or look at it maybe after the first 9 weeks? Is that what you thought about, or?
We could do do that once we get most of the principals, all of them send me their quarterly discipline report, but it's also, we'll be gauging it, so at the end of the semester, change comes in, they get new schedules, if anything new has to be amended, it's better to do it at the whole semester change, instead of just jumping from this, okay, now the policy is this, we need to be a little consistent on what we're trying to be consistent with. So we're gonna monitor, but I wouldn't want us to just jump out there and just change it after 45 days because it's looking like this. And the teachers are gonna have to do their part, and it's been a suggestion on teachers in not doing their part per se, which I think may help with, helping us, implement this with fidelity, with everybody across the board, with consistency.
Makes sense.
The students said that,
Yes.
that it really depended on the teacher,
Yes, the
that there was
teachers.
a lot of this policy was enforced by the teacher. Yes, Malcolm?
So right now, we're all deciding on the student. How about the teacher, if she has her phone number? Now, how are we gonna, I haven't even seen that kind of dress. So they come back and tell you the teacher has a phone number, now what's to come?
Well, the teachers are gonna be held to that same standard. I think what was discussed in our group was the teachers may receive a letter for not following through with their policy. A letter, and one of the teachers in the room was kind of like, teachers don't fear a letter in their file on that. So then possibly they would have to come and meet with the superintendent to say, why aren't you upholding our policy? And then from that, come to the board. Come here in front of you all to say, this is a policy that we put in place and we need that consistency, so teachers are going to be held accountable. It's about accountability, sustainability, and going across the board with consistency, so we are ready.
That's also a little difficult, I feel like, because we are expecting the teachers to communicate via all these apps and stay on top of everything. I know one teacher whose phone doesn't work in her classroom, so that's how the office gets a hold of her. So I think blanket crackdown on teachers for using their phones. It's one thing if they're on Instagram during instructional time, but they're also working professionals who
They have parents getting in touch
who
with them all
have parents
day.
messaging them and should be able
If
to
their
have
kids aren't
some
out.
professional leeway to make appropriate decisions.
All day
I feel like.
Did you all,
Like,
we can
they're
take.
professionals.
and
I
we
mean,
can-
really? Are you
Can't go to the
serious?
bathroom
That's
when they need
bullshit.
to, so.
We can vote on this and it will make its way into the student handbook, or we can not vote on this and wait until July and then Della can explain it to the parents.
Say something to them.
What is the cutoff date for the, student handbook?
It's usually mid to late July, as long as we have it in there by probably the third week of, July to the.
Madam Chair, I make the motion we table this until next meeting. Do we have a chance to
Delay,
look at this?
we'll postpone it to the next meeting. Okay, is that, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, and then this is a continuation of our meeting times that we talked about at the last meeting. So everybody has time to think about, this is another thing that needs to go into the handbook. To go to the schools or
Madam Chair,
yes.
I would request that we change it back to 6 o'clock. 6:30 is starting to be, it's rather late, and like I said, we started at 6, and right now it's almost 9:30. And we started at 6:30, we're probably been at almost 10. I would recommend we go back to at least 6 o'clock, for at least at the beginning, see if it works. I mean, at least, 2 meetings to see if it works. Time.
I think we changed it to 6:30 because people were working and they couldn't get here at 6. How many people are interested in returning to 6 p.m.? Yes.
So, o'clock, I think wouldn't be a bad time, but the next thing we're gonna discuss is if we go back to the schools.
Yes,
It's a longer
that's-
drive to the school, depending on, you know. like-
Depending on what school you're going to and where you
Like the
live.
north end, and then Waste going to, and then
Yes.
Down's going to the south end.
That's true, that's true. That's a good point. So, well, can we, let's talk about, if there is an interest in going to the schools, I'm assuming y'all would like to do that at the work session, the first meeting of the month?
I'm in favor of going back to the schools.
Yeah, we,
So-
okay,
Do I make, I make the motion that let's, as a board, during our work session,
that's the first meeting. of the
go
month,
back
right?
to
Is that how
the
it is?
schools. Into the schools.
To clarify, go back to routine school.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second that we would return our work sessions to the schools. All in favor?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
All right, I apologize. Just one. So we do recognize that in doing so, I just want to make a statement that we're not gonna be able in the closed sessions to be able to see, potentially see videos and things of that nature. Meaning at the schools, we typically have met in the libraries in the past. That's my experience, and the internet service and those is really hard, so that will impede our ability to work most efficiently compared to.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I don't know that that is the case in every school. It just might be a problem here. I don't know that that's the case in every school. There is a motion and a second. Yes.
Some discussion, so, we did go to, the work sessions were at schools pre-COVID.
Yes.
And, I don't remember it being an issue in the libraries with, I don't recall.
I don't recall a lot of videos being shown.
We could still set it up probably in the cafeteria if we wanted to. We just always chose the library, I guess, or, pre-COVID. But the one thing Jack did send me is so that you will have, be able to live stream. That was the big thing. If we went to the schools, before we did live stream, and now everybody's used to us live streaming. And he did say that we would, it's a system, counseling, some kind of wireless package system that you would take to every school with you. And it would have this kind of mic and some other things, and you could still live stream it. That was the one thing I asked him about, is live streaming it. Go back to the schools, so you can live stream it at the schools.
Will that work at Tangier too?
Yeah, but it's a big change here when we said change here.
Actually, I do remember, we didn't speak that one, but, we did have a disciplinary case, and we did do a fee to, our Arcadia at that time, so I think it could work. And I think we could just to get out into, to the schools, and make it easier for parents to attend some meetings that would be helpful, in my opinion.
There's a motion and a second to return to the schools for a work session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And then I would suggest if we're interested in going to Tangier, maybe we knock that out.
It's always the first.
The center, yeah,
Definitely by
because
October.
that way can't wait too long when the weather's not good.
Just not during hurricanes.
Right. None of us will come back. And then does anybody have a preference about, like, should we doing the high schools first or the elementaries? Or is there an advantage to doing the elementaries in the spring or the high schools in the fall, or alphabetical order or north to south?
Before we mix them up, so we had a variety, we did like elementary, middle, high, and then start over again, so you got a variety. And when you do these at the schools, do you want it set up the same way it was before, where you have a parent and a teacher and them to come and do a presentation and maybe?
I like that.
Okay. So this is gonna go back to 6 o'clock for both sessions?
No, I don't think we, no, I think, No, I think that I think the interest is to stay at 6:30, but it's just to, the only thing that's changing is the work sessions will be held at schools.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think we should just leave it up to the discretion of the superintendent, maybe what schools we go to.
Yes.
Because she would know schedules and whatnot, I think it'd be best, or best
Yes,
suggestion. to have her
yes.
If she would mind.
Yes,
Are we saying that for the regular sessions, we would stay here?
yes,
Or-
yeah, yes.
Not board chamber.
We went to all the trouble of arranging the tables, Jessica. Plus, I think everybody likes we have all this equipment here. But if you wanna make a motion, don't let me hold you back. Okay.
We might have less lives.
True, I know. Okay,
They want to purchase the portable mics,
how much are the purchase?
$3,000 for a system.
For all of them?
I will say before COVID, they just recorded our meeting, it was posted the next day.
So you don't want to do it live, just do it
What do y'all, what's the will of the board?
I'm just hearing will of the public, they like listening to it live. That's what I hear.
Just so we have some money.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion about purchasing the,
Oh, is that 3,000 per mic or per?
No, it's $3,000 for a system of 6. So we would still need a few additional ones, but Jack would take care of it.
I think since we have the excess money, I think we should be able to.
I'll make a motion that we purchase a system that Jack, research and found for us. to live
Second.
stream.
thank you, there's a motion and a second to purchase the audiovisual equipment to allow us to live stream from our work sessions at schools. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. School board member comments, Mr. Spidell,
I don't know.
Ms. Johnson, Dr.
Just
Johnson.
hoping that everyone is able to enjoy some time off this summer.
Said the retired person.
I had an opportunity to go to Savannah, Georgia with the elementary school beta, and I can honestly say that was one of the best trips I have ever participated in. It was just really, really nice, and I don't know who coordinated. I know that my child's teacher is Miss Johnson, but the camaraderie, it was awesome. It was great. It was just really nice.
I just wanted, just a couple of things, I went to the retirement dinner, it was very nice, we had, 8 that we honored that night. It's a nice event, everybody, I would encourage you, going forward to try to go to the retirement dinner, the graduations were very nice, and also, I know there was, when we decided to put the RFP out for the insurance consultant, there was some question as to whether we should do that or not, and I would just say, I believe, we saved right much money by doing that, by putting that out for bid. I think it was over $50,000. No? I thought it was the difference between,
I think it was like between 23 and 38.
I thought you said that Gallagher was 8,000.
well, we saved some money, we saved some money, and it didn't cost us anything. It
But
cost-
23 is what it was in 2020 as well.
Yeah. So, Mr. Taylor,
I'm good this evening.
Malcolm,
I'm good.
Jason,
Good.
Ben,
Pass.
Okay. On Thursday, the 20th, our valedictorians will be recognized by the Board of Supervisors at the Board of Supervisors Chambers at 5 o'clock. So if you can come, it's nice to have board members there to see them be recognized. Our lab school grant was approved, the first level, at the first level, which was really good, and on Thursday, it's also gonna go to the state school board to see if we get approved at that level. Let's see, we have, on July 9th, set up HR interviews, and I need 2 members. I know Dr. Johnson already volunteered online for it in an email, but, we need another person to be on it. So we've got that, Janet and Dr. Johnson. The last thing is, I don't know if any of you remember or you know, some of you probably do know, Robert Witherspoon. He was a custodian for 10 years in the division, and he died, end of last week, so please keep his family in your prayers.
We kind of need to go into a closed session, we got all our closed session business taken care of.
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?